Okay, hello, everybody. We are going to come to the very end of James and the Giant Peach. You will remember in the last episode, they were all in the peach. They'd fallen out of the sky after an aeroplane cut through all the strings. The final adventure, they fell out of the sky over New York and they landed on the spike on the top of the Empire State Building. So we've got to find out now, hopefully, how do they get down and what happens to them in New York. It was really an amazing sight, and in 2 or 3 minutes, as soon as the people below realised that this now couldn't possibly be a bomb, they came pouring out of the shelters and the subways to gape at the marvel. The streets for half a mile around the building were jammed with men and women, and when the word spread that there was actually living things moving about on the top of the great round ball, everyone went wild with excitement. "It's a flying saucer," they shouted. "They're from outer space. They are men from Mars. Or maybe they came from the moon. Maybe they're women from Mars." And a man with a pair of binoculars to his eyes said, "They look pretty peculiar to me, I'll tell you that." Police cars and fire engines came screaming in from all over the city and pulled up outside the Empire State Building. 200 firemen, 600 policemen swarmed into the building, went up in the elevators as high as they could go, up in the lifts. Then they poured out onto the observation roof, which is a place on the Empire State Building. You can go up to a certain level and you can go out on what they call the observation roof, and you could see right across New York, or you used to be able to. And it's just at the bottom of the sort of really narrow and spiky bit. All the policemen were holding their guns, because they do that in America, and the first thing they do, get their guns out, just in case, with their fingers on the triggers. The firemen were all clutching their hatchets, because they carry those big long handle axes, don't they, to break in through doors and things. From where they stood, almost directly underneath the peach, they couldn't actually see the travellers up on top. "Ahoy there!" shouted the chief of police. "Come out and show yourselves." And suddenly, and you can imagine how frightening this is going to be, suddenly the great brown head of the centipede, you have to remember, is huge for a centipede, appeared over the side of the peach. His black eyes, as large and round as marbles, glared down at the farmer and the policeman below. And then his monstrous, ugly face broke into a big wide grin. "Hello, everybody." The policeman and the fireman also shouted at once. "Look out!" they cried. "It's a dragon!" "It's not a dragon, it's a wampus." "What's a wampus?" "It's a gorgon." "It's a sea serpent." "It's a proc." "It's a manticore." 3 firemen and 5 policemen fainted and had to be carried away. "It's a snozwanger," cried the chief of police. "It's a wangdoodle," yelled the head of the fire department. I don't know what any of these are, do you? I think they're all made up words. The centipede kept on grinning. He seemed to be enjoying enormously the commotion he was causing. "Now see here," shouted the chief of police, cupping his hands to his mouth. "You listen to me. I want you to tell me exactly where you've come from." "Oh, we've come from thousands of miles away," the centipede shouted back, grinning more broadly than ever and showing his brown teeth. "There you are," called the chief of police. "I told you they came from Mars." "I guess you're right," said the head of the fire department. At this point, as if it wasn't scary enough for everybody, at this point, the old green grasshopper poked his huge green head over the side of the peach alongside the centipede, because the grasshopper would be even bigger than the centipede. 6 more big strong men fainted when they saw him. "That one's an oink!" screamed the head of the fire department. "I just know it's an oink." "Or a cockatrice," yelled the chief of police. "Stand back, men. It may jump down at any moment." "What on earth are they talking about?" the old green grasshopper said to the centipede. "Search me," the centipede answered, "but they seem to be an awful stew about something." And then, remembering a lot of people, it shouldn't be, but a lot of people are frightened of spiders, who should appear? Then Miss Spider's large, black, murderous-looking head, which to a stranger was probably the most terrifying of all, appeared next to the grasshoppers. "Snakes and ladders!" yelled the head of the fire department. "We are finished now. It's a giant scopula." "It's worse than that," cried the chief of police. "It's a vermicious knid." Oh, just look at its vermicious, gruesome face. Is that the kind that eats fully grown men for breakfast? The head of the fire department asked, going white as a sheet. I'm afraid it is, the chief police answered. Oh, please, why doesn't someone else help get us down from here, Miss Spider cried. It's all making me giddy. This could be a trick, said the head of the fire department. Don't anyone make a move until I say. They've probably got space guns, muttered the chief of police. We gotta do something, the head of the fire department announced grimly. About 5 million people are standing down there on the streets, watching us. Well, then why don't you put up a ladder, the chief of police asked him. I'll stand at the bottom and hold it steady for you while you go up and see what's happening. Oh, well, thanks very much, snapped the head of the fire department, who probably doesn't want to go up and see those huge monsters. It gets worse. Soon, there were no less than 7 large, fantastic faces peering down at the side of the peach. The centipedes, the old green grasshoppers, Miss Spiders, the earthworms, the ladybirds, the silkworms, and, of course, the glowworms. And a sort of panic was beginning to break out among the firemen and the policemen on the rooftop. And then all at once, the panic stopped. A great gasp of astonishment went up all around, for now a small boy was seen to be standing up there beside the other creature. Oh, at last, somebody to recognise. His hair was blowing in the wind, and he was laughing and waving and calling out, "Hello, everybody! Hello!" For a few moments, the men below just stood and stared and gaped. They simply couldn't believe their eyes. "Well, bless my soul," cried the head of the fire department, getting red in the face. "It really is a little boy, isn't it?" "Don't be frightened of us, please," James called out. "We're so glad to be here." "What about those others beside you?" shouted the chief of police. "Are any of them dangerous?" "Of course they're not dangerous," James answered. "They're the nicest creatures in the world. Allow me to introduce them to you one by one, and then I'm sure you will believe me. My friend is a centipede, and let me make it known. He is so sweet and gentle that, although he's overgrown, the Queen of Spain again has summoned him by phone to babysit and sing and knit and be a chaperone when nurse is off and all the little royal children are alone. Small wonder, said a fireman, they're no longer on the throne. The earthworm, on the other hand, said James, beginning to expand, is great for digging up the land and making old soils newer. Moreover, you should understand, he would be absolutely grand for digging the subway tunnels and for making you a sewer. The earthworm blushed and beamed with pride. Miss Spider clapped and cheered and cried, could any words be truer? And the grasshopper, ladies and gents, is a boon in millions and millions of ways. You've only to ask him to give you a tune, and he plays and he plays and he plays. As a toy for your children, he's perfectly sweet. There's nothing so good in the shops. You've only to tickle the soles of his feet, and he hops and he hops and he hops. He can't be very fierce, explained the head of all the cops. And now, without excuse, I'd like to introduce this charming glowworm lover of simplicity. She is easy to install on your ceiling, on your wall, and although this smacks a bit of eccentricity, it's really rather clever. For thereafter you will never have the slightest need for using electricity. At which no less than 52 policemen cried, if this is true, that creature will get some fabulous publicity. There's some brilliant rhyming there, have you noticed? Simplicity, eccentricity, electricity, and publicity. Brilliant rhyming words. And here we have Miss Spider, with a mile of thread inside her, who has personally requested me to say that she's never met Miss Muffet on her charming little tuffet. If she had, she'd not have frightened her away. Should a look sometimes alarm you, then I don't think it would harm you to repeat at least 100 times a day. I must never kill a spider. I must only help and guide her, and invite her in the nursery to play. The policeman all nodded slightly, and the fireman smiled politely, and about a dozen people cried, hooray! And here's my darling ladybird, so beautiful, so kind, my greatest comfort since this trip began, because she's been lovely, hasn't she, been like his mum. She has 400 children, she's left them all behind, but they're coming on the next peach of the can. The cops cried she's entrancing, all the fierce firemen started dancing, and the crowds all started cheering to a man. And now the silkworm, James went on, whose silk will bear comparison with all the greatest silks there are in Rome and Philadelphia. If you would search the whole world through, from Paraguay to Timbuktu, I don't think you would find one bit of silk that could compare with it. Even the shops in Singapore don't have the stuff. And what is more, The silkwoman had, I'll have you know, the honour not so long ago to spin and weave and sew and press the Queen of England's wedding dress, and she's already made and sent a waistcoat for your president. Well, good for her, the cops cried out, and all at once a mighty shout went up around the Empire State. Let's get them down at once. Why, wait, that was a long poem. I have to drink my tea, I think. I guess it all gets the throat sometimes, doesn't it, reading stories? 5 minutes later, they were all safely down, and James was excitedly telling his story to a group of flabbergasted officials, and suddenly everyone who'd come over on the Peach was a hero. They were all escorted to the steps of City Hall, where the Mayor of New York made a speech of welcome. While he was doing this, 100 steeplejacks, the people who climbed the outside of buildings, armed with ropes and ladders and pulleys, swarmed up to the top of the Empire State Building, lifted the giant Peach off the spike, and lowered it to the ground. And then the mayor shouted, "We must now have a ticker tape parade for our wonderful visitors." And so a procession was formed. In the leading car, which was an enormous open limousine, sat James and all his friends. Next came the giant Peach itself. Men with cranes and hooks lifted it carefully and put it back on this huge lorry. There was, of course, a bit of a hole in the bottom of it where the spike of the Empire State Building had gone. But who cared about that, or indeed about the peach juice that was dripping onto the street. Behind the Peach, skidding about all over the place in the peach juice, came the mayor's limousine. Behind the mayor's limousine came 20 other limousines carrying all the important people of the city. And the crowds went wild with excitement. They lined the streets and they lined out the windows, throwing all sorts of bits of tape and so on and confetti out of the windows. Then a rather curious thing happened. The procession was moving slowly along Fifth Avenue when suddenly a little girl in a red dress ran out from the crowd and shouted, "Oh, James, could I please have just a tiny taste of your marvellous peach?" "Help yourself," James shouted back. "Eat all you want. He won't keep forever anyway." No sooner had he said this than about 50 other children charged out of the crowd and came running on the street. "Can we have some too?" "Of course you can," James said. "Everyone can have some." And the children jumped all over the back of the lorry. And as the procession went on, more and more children joined. It was a fantastic sight. To some people, it looked like the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Now, that's another story. Maybe we'll do that some other time. And to James, who never dreamed there could be so many children, because he had hardly any friends, no friends to talk about, did he? It's the most marvellous thing in the world. By the time the procession was over, the whole of the giant peach had been eaten up. In the middle was the big brown stone, surrounded by 10,000 eager little tongues. And so the journey ended, but the travellers lived on. Every one of them became rich and successful in the new country. The Centimede was made vice president in charge of sales of a high-class firm of boot and shoe manufacturers, because he's very keen on shoes, isn't he? The Earthworm, with his lovely pink skin, was employed by a company that made women's face creams to speak commercials on television. The Silkworm and Miss Spider, after they'd both been taught to make nylon thread instead of silk, set up a factory together and made ropes for tightrope walkers. The Glowworm became the light inside the torch on the Statue of Liberty, and thus saved a grateful city from having to pay a huge electricity bill every year. So if you ever go to New York, and if you go on the ferry that goes from one side of New York to the other, you will see the huge Statue of Liberty, great green lady. And on the top, you will see, at night, you'll see a light. And that is the old Glowworm. The old green grasshopper became a member of the New York Symphony Orchestra, where his playing was greatly admired. I'm not surprised. The ladybird, who had been haunted all her life by the fear that her house was on fire, that's an old nursery rhyme, you might know that one, ladybird, ladybird, rush away home, your house is on fire. And her children married, sorry, I have to read that bit again. The ladybird, who had been haunted all her life by the fear that her house was on fire and her children all gone, married the head of the fire department and lived happily ever after. And as for the enormous peach stone, it was set up permanently in a place of honour in Central Park and became a famous monument. But it was not only a famous monument, it was also a famous house. And inside the famous house there lived a famous person, James Henry Trotter himself. And all you had to do any day of the week was to go up and knock upon the door. The door would always be open to you, and you would always be asked to come inside and see the famous room where James had first met his friends. And sometimes you were very lucky. You would find the old green grasshopper in there as well, resting peacefully in a chair before the fire. Or perhaps it would be the ladybird who had dropped in for a cup of tea and a gossip. Or the centipede to show off a new batch of particularly elegant boots that he had just acquired. And every day of the week, hundreds and hundreds of children from far and near came pouring into the city to see the marvellous peach stone in the park. And James Henry Trotter, who once, if you remember, had been the saddest, loneliest little boy you could ever find in the whole world, now had all the friends and all the children to play with he could possibly want. And because so many were always begging him to tell and tell again the story of his adventures on the peach, he thought it would be nice if one day he sat down and wrote it as a book. And so he did. And that is what you have been listening to. That is the end of James and the Giant Peach. It's a great story. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. If you've only just come in, then you can always go back to the beginning and listen to the whole story. You can listen to the whole thing any time you want. It's been a pleasure reading to you. I hope you've enjoyed it, and maybe I'll try and do something else in the future. Be happy, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. Goodbye.